All right. Can everyone hear me? I think I just unmuted everyone. Yeah. All right. All right. So welcome, you guys. My name is Lauren, contrary to actually what my screen says. I'm not Ariana. So my name is Lauren, and I am a NASM certified personal trainer, as well as a pre and postnatal exercise specialist. Oh, let me admit. And then I'm also one of the online trainers for Lead the Way Fit Nutrition. So I do the online training there. So I was really excited to put together this presentation because I did get this certification, and then I'm also 5 months postpartum myself. So I was able to kind of put myself through my own program and heal and recover really well. So I wanted to be able to share that knowledge and experience with everyone else. All right, so hopefully I can get through this presentation in about 30 minutes, and then I'll leave time at the end for questions. Throughout the
I know
presentation,
I'm
there.
going to have a lot of questions. I think this directly applies to me. So I'm really excited to be on this workshop.
Dustin, males have pelvic floors too, so it could be male oriented as well.
All right. Well, yes, I do want to learn about this. And I'm just teasing you like I tease the barbers and the hairstylists when I walk by and say, oh, you're not going to get a sale out of me. Yeah. So, all right, I'll let you continue. Sorry to
All
interrupt.
right. So here I go. So what I was going to say is the presentation itself has some videos throughout. I'm going to click on the video just so you can see and hear an explanation of what I'm talking about. And then I'll further explain it as well. All right. Okay. So just a little intro on kind of postpartum. Any female who has birthed a child is considered postpartum. So whether that was 6 weeks ago, 6 years ago, and we all have different postpartum journeys. As many females will know, delivering a baby is really tough work. So recovery should reflect that. It's not easy to recover from that. So putting in the work to do so is a process. And that being said, activity, physical movement, that can all contribute to the healing process, but it can also take away from that healing process if you are doing activity and physical movement incorrectly. Strengthening your core and your pelvic floor and rebuilding that postpartum will help you do exercise, especially abdominal exercises, more effectively. So having that strong core is really helpful, not just in being healed, but also in all of your workouts that you do. So just some helpful terms that I'm going to be using. And this is going to take a lot of visual as well, but pelvic floor. So your pelvic floor has 14 different muscles and 3 different layers. So you want to think of your pelvic floor as a sling or almost a hammock. That is the floor of the core, as you can see in the PowerPoint. So this is the floor or the bottom of your core. Think of your core as a can, so a round three-dimensional object, and your pelvic floor is the bottom of that can. So your pelvic floor attaches from the front at the pubic symphysis, which is that hard muscle kind of down in your pelvic region, to the back of your coccyx, which is like right beneath your tailbone, and then the sides of the ischial tuberosities, which are your sits bones. So if you're sit up nice and tall on your butt on a chair, those are like the 2 bones that are right in your butt area. So these are all really critical muscles that support all of your pelvic organs. They stabilize your pelvis, control continence, aid in sexual response, and then of course assist in guiding your baby out. So super important muscles in that area. One of the things I want to point out is you probably heard it before, do your Kegels. You can do Kegels before, during, all the time, and you might have heard that. The unfortunate thing is when you think about doing your Kegels, it's only focusing on strengthening and tightening your pelvic floor muscles, but it doesn't focus on relaxing your pelvic floor muscles. So as in any exercise. So you think of a bicep curl, there is a concentric portion, which is where you're tightening and flexing the muscle. But then there's also the eccentric portion of a bicep curl where you're lengthening your arm and you're lengthening and relaxing your muscle. So both are super important, the squeezing and then the relaxing as well, because that's how you get the absolute most out of the movement. You wouldn't just hold a bicep curl and flex your bicep the whole time. That would be really tiring. All right. So another helpful term, the transverse abdominis. So you want to think of these as your corset abdominal muscles. This is the TVA is the deepest layer of your abdominal muscles, and it runs between your ribs and your pelvis. All right, so these are ones that you cannot see. They're hard to feel. It's beyond just the rectus abdominis, which are like the six-pack muscles that run up and down. These are very, very internal. And when you engage your TVA muscles, you're almost like giving a hug to your internal organs. So a lot of things will describe it as like a natural corset around those organs, around that lumbar spine. All right. So moving into kind of the first techniques or the first practice scenarios of how to strengthen your core. So this is called 360 breathing. A lot of times when we breathe, a lot of people breathe actually incorrectly, thinking that when you inhale through your nose, that you're sucking your stomach in, and then exhaling is pushing your stomach out. So that's actually reverse of how you want to breathe. So why it's called 360 as well is to visualize your entire core as a can or as a three-dimensional object. You have so rather than just thinking of it as a front and a back, your back and your tummy, a three-dimensional object that also it's like your entire torso is round, and then you have your core on all sides. Like I mentioned earlier, then your pelvic floor is the bottom of that can or that round, that cylindrical object. So when we do 360 breathing, our entire core expands 360 degrees in a rounded visual. So it's coming out the front, it's pushing back into your lower back, and it's pressing out into the sides. It's filling your entire rib cage. We also, when we inhale, we don't want our shoulders to rise and to build tension in our traps. As we exhale, our navel draws in and up. So it's not just sucking in your navel to the back, it's in and up into your rib cage. So I'm going to click on this video, and then this is just going to give us a little better explanation here. All right.
Hey Lauren, is there a way you can get the audio to work?
Say that again.
Is there a way you can get the audio to come through? I think.
Oh, how do I do that? I don't know why the audio wouldn't be coming through.
If you stop sharing, and then you can share. If you go to.
Hang on one second, everyone. And then just go from here.
Yes, there might be a way. I think at the top there's advanced version, and then you can click on share computer audio.
All right, so go back to share screen.
Yes.
And sharing options. I don't know. Hang on. Hang on. Okay, I might have to talk over the video. Let's see. Oh, share sound. Hold on. We got it. We got it. All right. Can we hear this?
Into your back, 360
Yes.
degrees.
Okay.
And then as you exhale through your mouth, feel the rib cage close in. So feel your navel draw into your spine. We're not going to collapse forward. We're going to collapse inward. So try that again. Inhale, 360 expansion, front, sides, and back. And then exhale, navel draws in as a result of the exhale. Now, when you inhale, two things. One, you want to make sure that expansion's not just all belly and all forward.
All right. So basically what the video is showing you is just visualizing that 360. When we do all this breathing, we want to be sitting upright with really good posture on the edge of a chair. It's just the easiest to feel it. So starting always with your hands around that rib cage, just so you can feel everything expanding. And like she was saying, expanding forward, expanding into your sides, expanding out to your back. The importance of this as well is when you incorporate 360 breathing into your exercises, you want to think as an inhale to prepare and then an exhale on the effort. So a squat, for example, you would inhale as you lower down into a squat and you exhale on the effort. So, and then the more intense the movement is, the harder you want to exhale. All right. So now going into pelvic floor activation. Like I said, this is easiest to perform while you're seated upright on the edge of a chair. So to practice strengthening your pelvic floor, this is Kegels, for example. You're basically tightening your muscles as if you're trying to stop urine and flatulence simultaneously. Flatulence is farting or pooping. We're going to get technical with our terms here. So you're basically at the same time trying to stop yourself from peeing and pooping. All right. So if you're sitting on the edge of a chair, that's what it should feel like. You shouldn't just feel like you're tightening through your front muscles. You want to feel it in the back, because remember we said that a pelvic floor attaches from that pubic symphysis up front. As a sling, it attaches to the back. So we want to feel all those muscles tightening at the same time. All right, practice relaxing your pelvic floor. This is significantly harder to master just because we don't think about it. We always think about tightening. We can feel tightening. We can feel strengthening. It's harder to think about and feel relaxing. So the best way that I can explain it so that it's also visual is thinking of your pelvic floor relaxing is like a blooming flower. It's opening and stretching as wide as it can. So sorry for any of these terms that might feel a little graphic, but you're going to breathe in and imagine your breath going into your butthole. All right. So you want to, again, visualize your breath coming backwards, but your breath should fill your entire pelvic region. So your breath is filling the entire space from your hips on the left and the right. It's filling your belly button front and back. And then you should feel like your pelvic floor is almost dropping down. So it's pressing downward and it's opening to all sides, the front, the back, and then the two sides, those ischial tuberosities, which are those sits bones again. So breathing in, and then as you breathe out, your pelvic floor blooms and opens and everything relaxes. You want to feel that downward pressure through the pelvic floor. All right. So now we get into breathing, where we're going to incorporate that 360 breathing and then also the pelvic floor simultaneously. So that's why we wanted to go through that 360 breath plus the activation of the pelvic floor. And now this is called I'll call it the core canister pump. So remember your core, we're visualizing it as a can or a canister. It's a three-dimensional object that is round from front, sides to the back, and your pelvic floor is the bottom of that can. So this core canister pump increases your TVA or your transverse abdominis and pelvic floor activation because it focuses on relaxing and contracting both at the same time. All right. So in this pump, we focus on relaxing, contracting the TVA and PF at the same time. We cue an inhale and the rib cage expands and we relax the pelvic floor. Exhale is where the navel draws in and the pelvic floor draws up. So again, I'll say that again. We're inhaling through the nose. Our rib cage expands forward, sides, back. Our pelvic floor relaxes into a downward pressure, that blooming flower. When we exhale, the navel draws in, up, and the pelvic floor draws up as well. That's the strengthening or the contraction. So let me give you a visual here with this video.
The core canister pump is similar to the PFA slow, but on the exhale, as you focus on drawing your pelvic floor muscles up, you're also going to focus more intently on drawing your navel in. So we're going to start just like that PFA slow. We're going to inhale and expand the rib cage, relax the pelvic floor. Now the exhale, draw the pelvic floor muscles up and belly in. So it's up and in, everything pulls together. Inhale, relax everything. Rib cage expands, pelvic floor relaxes. Exhale, belly draws in, pelvic floor draws up. And then fully relax. Now this core canister pump is the most important exercise in your core recovery.
All right, so I know some of you are off video, but I bet if I asked, are you confused by your breathing? Then everyone would raise their hand. Because if you think about it, we do not think about breathing every day. We just don't. It's natural. We go about our day and we're taking breaths and we're alive. So by doing focused breathing exercises and the inhale and the exhale and which direction is my tummy poking out, in, up, down, it's really confusing. So the best thing I can say is, I mean, I don't know where everyone is seated or at, but if you're at home and you have a chance to just sit down and take a few moments right now to coordinate your breathing and your abs and your pelvic floor. I'm just going to give you like 30 seconds to try to get your head on straight. I'll cue it one more time. If you're sitting down, sitting upright, your hands are wrapped around your rib cage so you can feel the movement. As you inhale through your nose with your mouth closed, your belly expands out into your sides, into your back. Think of the canister. It's filling up the entire can. Your pelvic floor is pressing down, blooming into the flower. And then as you exhale through your mouth, now this is when everything contracts and comes in and up. So on the exhale, that's when you're feeling like you're stopping your pee flow. That's when you're feeling like you're stopping your fart from coming out. That's when your belly button is coming in and up into your rib cage. So try to take a couple big breaths right here. I'll stop talking, close your eyes, think about it here. All right. So just a couple deep breaths. And like I said, if feels like your mind was a little wonky, all these materials will be provided for you and I can repeat it as many times as you need. Believe me, it's not easy to think about when someone says, think about breathing, because you just do it. So we'll move on to another breathing exercise, which is called the core canister hold. So whereas the previous one, we're basically just breathing in and out, and everything is coordinating correctly. As you breathe in, things expand. As you breathe out, things contract. So with the hold, this is where we really work on strengthening. As you breathe in, everything relaxes. As you breathe out on the exhale, we contract everything, right? We worked on that, but now the hold, you're going to keep your core, your TVA contracted. You're going to keep your pelvic floor muscles squeezing like you're trying to stop pee and farts. Everything is contracting, everything is squeezing, and you're going to try to do a couple more 2 to 3 breath cycles in and out without releasing that hold. All right. So if you're sitting there, then you're going in through your nose. Everything expands and relaxed. You're breathing out through your mouth. Everything comes in and hold. Everything's tight. You're holding it. You're squeezing it. And you're going to try to keep breathing. And if you're really focusing on holding in through that pelvic floor, those muscles are going to start to shake. So think about it as in a squat, you breathe in to prepare as you lower down into your squat. And then think about holding your squat at the lowest part of the squat. So you're holding down, you're doing a pause squat, down in that squat. Your muscles are shaking, your core is tight. Your glutes are squeezing, your legs are all contracted, everything's contracted, and you're trying to keep breathing. But what you're going to feel the longer you hold it is those muscles are going to start shaking because they're working really hard to keep that hold. So that's kind of like your pelvic floor and those abdominal muscles. You're keeping them contracted, but you're trying to keep breathing through it. So you're just trying to simply increase the time held. This is up to 30 seconds. I cannot do 30 seconds. I feel like things down there are going to explode, but you're going to try, just full disclosure, you're going to try to hold it for as long as you can. So I'll give you, I'll say about 30 seconds right now, just to try it, whether you're standing, sitting, hopefully you can be sitting. Remember, breathe in through your nose, everything expands. Exhale through your mouth. Pelvic floor squeezes up, navel up and in, and now hold that contraction and try to take 2 more breath cycles. Right. So even for me on that second breath cycle, I felt like I was starting to shake. I felt like my breath was getting a little shaky as I was trying to hold everything in. All right, so that is our core canister hold. So now we go into some levels of how to incorporate these things into your day. All right, so level 1 is seated. Everything I just talked about, that 360 breathing, that core canister pump, which is just that breathing in and out with your pelvic floor activating. And then the last one I just did, the core canister hold, breathing in and out. Everything is activated, contracted, and you try to continue that breathing. So level 1, you're just doing these 3 things seated. This is where everyone should start. This is where you can progress from seated. You could do these 360 breathing techniques as you're brushing. No, brushing your teeth might be hard. As you're maybe washing the dishes, you want your full breathing patterns to be normal. So maybe as you're washing the dishes, as you're just sitting on the couch, you could do that there. You can always practice breathing. So level 2 is incorporating these breathing patterns into some exercises in a supine position. Supine means laying on your back. So this is where we want to pay close attention to our breathing pattern. The entire movement of these things happen on the exhale, because that just means, remember, the exhale is when things are contracted and engaged. So we want our movement to happen on the core engagement. All right. So these are the 3 exercises in a supine position. For all 3 of these, you inhale before the beginning of the exercise. You exhale, engage the TVA, the pelvic floor, as you go through that movement, and then return back to starting. So let me show you an example in a bridge position.
The core recovery bridge is back. So to get there, we're going to go there safely by rolling to your side first and then getting onto your back. So we're going to incorporate the core canister pump with this movement. So you're going to inhale before beginning and then exhale as you push your hips up, navel draws in, pelvic floor draws up and lower all the way back down, all on one exhale. Now inhale fully and relax and then repeat. Exhale as the navel draws in, pelvic floor draws up, and the entire movement happens on that exhale. So you're inhaling before beginning, And then the entire movement happens on the exhale all the way.
So you could see what her belly was doing throughout that bridge. And you can also see what I meant by the entire movement happens on the exhale. So she went through that entire bridge movement with one giant exhale. And that just means you're engaging the entire time. So let me show you another example here. The knee lift, it'll be kind of the same concept.
The core recovery knee lift side and then rolling onto your back. So you're going to start knees bent, feet flat on the floor, hands behind your head. Inhale before beginning and then exhale as you lift your knee up and lower back down all in one exhale. And remember, we're performing the core canister pump with this. So as you exhale, navel draws in, pelvic floor draws up. Make sure as you lift your knee, you keep that neutral curvature.
All right, so same concept with that one. The entire movement, that knee lift is happening on the exhale. And that's just focusing on keeping the pelvic floor engaged, the abdominals tight, and then practicing the movements along with that breathing. So I won't go through the next one. You'll get all these materials and you can watch the heel slide as well. All right, so moving on to level 3, this is the hardest level and usually the most challenging position because quadruped just means that you're on your knees and your hands, all right? Kind of like you're about to do a donkey kick. Your core is essentially working against gravity because now your belly button's pointed down to the ground. So everything wants to just fall out, right? Everything wants to fall forward. This is also where your pelvic floor attachments are now stretched open the farthest. So that hammock or that sling is getting pulled apart further than when you're in a seated or that supine position. Just as with everything in level 2, the entire movement happens on the exhale. So I'll go through 2 of these as well, just so you can see what's happening. So hip extension, we're on all fours in that quadruped. Always inhale before the beginning, your belly expands, exhale, everything tightens, engages, and then you go through that entire movement. Here we go.
Now we're going to do a hip extension in quadruped, that core canister pump. So you're going to inhale before you begin, then exhale as you extend your leg behind, navel draws in, pelvic floor draws up, and come back in, all in one exhale. Then inhale, reset, same leg again, and you're going to extend that leg straight out behind as you perform the core canister pump. Make sure when you extend that leg behind that you're not hyperextending.
All right, so going through those, so bird dog is going to look the same as that hip extension, but you're going to be using your arms as well. So we increase the difficulty. Diagonal bird dog, same thing as the hip extension, but arm is coming out. And the arm and the leg are coming out at a diagonal. So now our balance is tested and our TVA and pelvic floor tested as well. So these become extremely difficult. So you'll notice that I just went through all those levels. We're working our core, our deep inner core muscles, those TVA muscles. And you'll notice that there was nowhere we did leg raises or crunches or sit-ups or anything like that. You can work your core by doing these slow and controlled exercises. Because what happens is when we're doing sit-ups, when we're doing flutter kicks and planks, which are all fine abdominal exercises, remember that there are 3 layers to abdominal wall. There's our six-pack muscles, which are right up front. That's what a sit-up is going to work, but we don't dig deep to that 3rd layer, which are those TVA muscles, those corset muscles. So going through all of those, my suggested time spent and frequency to do those breathing exercises to really work on our core and pelvic floor is 5 to 8 minutes every day. You're not breaking a sweat. It's not a lot of time out of your day. You want to begin every session with those 3 breathing exercises, the 360 breathing, that core canister pump, the core canister hold, and you can do those 3 breathing exercises in either that seated position as level 1. You can do those 3 breathing exercises supine on your back, or you can do them in that quadruped position. You could do those for the day, do those 3 breathing exercises, a couple rounds, and be done. Or I'd suggest once you master that breathing, to choose 2 or 3 exercises from the level 2 and 3 or a combo. So that would be the hip extension, that would be your bridges, the bird dog, and just perform them for another 3 to 4 minutes until your little time limit is up. Again, it doesn't take that much time per day because this work is so concentrated on our smaller muscle groups. All right. And we've reached the end. So that just kind of goes through. That was pretty speedy. And of course, I forgot at the beginning to mention that I am not a doctor. I cannot advise you on anything medical, anything internal, but exercise-wise and strengthening, these are all very helpful, and you can do them, like I said, as many years, weeks postpartum. If you're planning on having another child, if you have never had a child, you can do these still every day to prepare yourself for more functional exercise, for a functional pregnancy as well. And then what I'm also going to send to you is I have a whole nother document of exercises that are meant to balance and strengthen your pelvis. So a lot of them are single-sided moves, things you might not think about. They're deep inner core moves, and all of them will have videos attached to them as well. All right. And with that, if anyone wants me to go over the slides again, if you have any questions, now would be the time. And everyone is on mute now, so you can unmute yourself if you have any questions. Nothing? Is everyone here on the call? Some years postpartum, perhaps, except for Dustin, maybe? Yes, no?
I have a question.
Yes, Melinda.
So is there an amount of time that you would need to do these exercises for, like weeks, months, years before your core is back to pre-baby?
So you want to think about the time spent post-baby. So if we spend 9 months growing a baby, and if you think, okay, it takes 9 months to maybe recover from that, but then if you are certain number of years postpartum, if you're 5 years postpartum, I'm not going to tell you that it's going to take 5 whole years to strengthen and rebuild again. But the longer you are postpartum, that means the more that those pelvic floor muscles and core have been sort of working overtime to repair. So you want to know that the length of time that maybe you are postpartum and you're feeling like you do need some rebuilding, it'll take a little bit longer to reach that point. The biggest thing that you can focus on rebuilding is that pelvic floor. Those are all muscles that can be strengthened and repaired. And it can, just starting again with the 5 to 8 minutes per day, I want to say consistently, you should feel maybe some sort of difference or strengthening in a month. And that might just be an internal feeling. You might not visually see anything, but a month of just consistent work, then those things can help repair and feel at least a little bit more normal. One thing I forgot to mention is that, pelvic floor, it does control continence, and it's really, really common to hear postpartum that you have leaking, that you can't do jumping jacks or running. And, sometimes misery is company and everyone just perpetuates that. It's so common to have incontinence, but it's not normal. So as long as we remind ourselves, if you are having that leaking or that downward pressure in your pelvic floor, that it's not normal, then you know that you can do the repair exercises to try to fix that. I will say though, just to advise, and I don't know if a lot of people know this resource is out there, but there are pelvic floor physical therapists. If you are a certain number of weeks postpartum, 6+ weeks, and you still feel downward external or pressure in your pelvic floor on high impact activities or squatting, I would highly advise you to maybe seek out a pelvic floor physical therapist. It's also worth, you could just see them. Insurance may or may not cover them, but you can sometimes get a referral through your OB. All right.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. And then Veronica asked, what can you do before having the baby? So essentially everything I just went over, this can be done pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, post-pregnancy. So everything is about doing these before pregnancy is really helpful to strengthen and relax the pelvic floor, because relaxing the pelvic floor during birth is actually more important than having that tight pelvic floor. So working on those relaxation techniques, that blooming flower, if you will, that's really helpful for giving birth, and working on the proper pushing techniques when you are in labor. Also activity during pregnancy and pre-pregnancy, things to strengthen your pelvic muscles and those abdominal muscles will just lead to an easier pregnancy, hopefully, a smoother labor. Again, hopefully things always have their own way of playing out, but all of these things can be done pre, during, and post. Right. Any other questions, anyone? So like I said, I'm going to be sending out this PowerPoint as well as another document that has more workout focused exercises that are really good for balancing our pelvic muscles. So our pelvis, gets wider and expands a lot during pregnancy, and sometimes our hips will stay wide and unbalanced postpartum as well. During pregnancy, your ligaments stretch out. It's called like your round ligaments. They get really stretched. Sometimes it takes a while for them to shorten again and kind of come back to where they should be. So strengthening your pelvic muscles so that you aren't lopsided or compensating is really important to do post-pregnancy as well. All right. Awesome. Well, I'm also going to send out my email with these documents and this information. I know this might have been a lot to take in, especially if you felt like you were not aware at all about those deep core muscles, that pelvic floor. If you have any questions, I love talking about this within my scope. And you can always email me just in response to these documents. If you want to follow up at all, just a personal one-on-one Zoom, I'd love to talk to you about it, or answer more questions if you have them. All right. All right, guys. Well, I hope everyone has a fantastic Thursday. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And I will be sure to send everything over, as well as the recording of this Zoom as well, if you want to reference anything that I might have said. All right. I hope everyone has a great day. I'm going to go ahead and stop this.